Good morning, Cornerstone. For your inspirational vitamin today on this Monday, I'm going to read in from Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 1 through 3 at the beginning, and then the last couple of verses of the chapter at the end. Ezekiel 1, verse 1, it says, In the 30th year, in the fourth month, on the fifth day of the month, while I was among the exiles by the Kaber Canal, the heavens were open, and I saw visions of God. On the fifth day of the month, it was the fifth year of King Jehoiakim's exile. The word of the Lord came directly to the priest Ezekiel, son of Buzi, in the land of the Chaldeans by the Kaber Canal. The Lord's hand was on him there. Then, towards the end of the chapter, starting at verse 25, it says, A voice came from above the expanse over their heads. When they stopped, they lowered their wings. Something like a throne with the appearance of lapis lazuli was above the expanse over their heads. On the throne, high above, was someone who looked like a human. From what seemed to be his waist up, I saw a gleam like amber, with what looked like fire enclosing it all around. From what seemed to be his waist down, I also saw what looked like fire. There was a brilliant light all around him. The appearance of the brilliant light all around him was like that of a rainbow in a cloud on a rainy day. This was the appearance of the likeness of the Lord's glory. When I saw it, I fell face down and heard a voice speaking. I'd love to see God, if only for, a moment, for an instant. Ezekiel actually had that amazing experience to see God's divine glory. As we read through this first chapter of Ezekiel, if we read through it, there are these beautiful and just marvelous descriptions of, the throne of God, the glory of God, celestial beings. Um, these words, they just burst with power, the majesty, the beauty of the Lord and his heavenly court. A little bit about Ezekiel. So he was a priest that lived during the time of captivity among the exiles of his people. The Jews had been taken as captives to Babylonians by King Nebuchadnezzar just a few years before this. Um, this was because they had been disobedient to God, right? So it's kind of like they were in a timeout, so to speak. And this was meant to be like a learning lesson, a teaching lesson for them being in captivity. They had become arrogant, they had become idolatrous, and they needed to learn, or sort of to relearn, humility towards God, to recognize that there's only one and one only, all powerful and amazing Lord of the universe and of their lives. Um, as you can imagine, as we read, and as you read through the scriptures, life in exile was not easy for them. They were living in a different culture, under the oppression of a government that didn't fear God. And it was in this situation, under pressure, in captivity, and what seemed to be very dark times, that God revealed himself to Ezekiel. Um, the sovereign, majestic, and glorious Lord, came to this prophet and priest, but he showed up, you know, in a very personal and direct way. He showed up, um, you know, to have a close encounter with Ezekiel. And I imagine this encounter provoked admiration, praise, respect, and it showed Ezekiel that God wanted to have a relationship with him, even deeper relationship with him. In the same way that God went to meet Ezekiel on the river, right by this, what is it, the Kaber Canal. Jesus came into our world to meet us. He came to our world and gave up his life so that we could be made sons and friends of God. Ezekiel saw, the appearance of God. He saw God's glory. And it was, and to be truth be told, um, it wasn't even as I imagined how we're going to be able to see one day fully face to face, right? And the only way we get to that is due to the work and the majestic and glorious work that Jesus did on the cross, right? So right now we can't physically see God, but we can know him daily. We can know him through the power of his spirit, by his word, and when we have faith and allegiance to Jesus. Living with God now is the first step to being able to actually see him face to face one day, in the same way that Ezekiel sort of had these visions. It won't just be a visions, we'll actually be in the presence of God one day. So that's your inspirational vitamin. I hope you have a great Monday. Think about, what it would be like to one day see God face to face. Love you, Cornerstone. Have a great Monday.